Okay, when dealing with evaluating, that is, you're going to plug things in, that you have to basically be careful about remembering that you have to put things inside of parentheses. And when you've got big things inside of the parentheses, then you have to look at each one of those separately. Now, as you've given me the problem here, what you've got is basically a smaller number being multiplied to something that is being added or subtracted in the other one. I'm hoping the highlight colors here will help a little bit. So when we went to the rewrite here, that notice how I put the parentheses, and we were talking about having that parentheses around that 4 there. Again, what I'm doing is hopefully by highlighting what's inside here, and don't be afraid to use your own highlight pen. In fact, I've got my famous 4-color Bic clicky pen that I use, and I'm really using different colors all the time while I write. But then I put the parentheses here, and notice how you can see a little bit better here that there's some things happening inside here, and there's your little minus sign for what's happening to the 7 and the 3. Just remember to go from left to right. Even when you're inside of parentheses, will help the situation at the same time here. So what we have is 5 times a negative 4 being multiplied to negative 3 times negative 2 minus 7 times the 3. All over 2 times the 3 plus 5 times negative 2. Now, as you're doing your problems, another thing that really kind of helps with this is if you say somewhat out loud what you're writing and what you're working on. You're very auditory to begin with. That means you like speaking and you like hearing. That's kind of how you work. Make sure you say the sign with it at the same time. Okay, so I've split it up over here again with some different colors so you can kind of see what's happening here. Negative 20 times, there's that multiply again, 6, and there's the minus sign, minus the 21. Minus signs are a negative, but you just got to be careful that you're doing the correct math at the time here. So, and that's going to give you the negative 20 times the negative 15, which gives you the positive 300. Now, in these ones that have something up top and something down below, make sure that you are doing the stuff on top separate from the stuff down below. And hopefully by just kind of seeing this in writing, you can see how we ended up with the final answer here. Left to right, parentheses, watch your integers. Okay, when combining like terms, you can only add same letters that have the same powers. The power doesn't change, it's just the number in the front changes. And of course, you're going to see lots of little plus and minus signs hanging around. One thing that's rather helpful in doing this is actually just putting like stuff together in a rewrite. Just makes it nice and easier to see. So I've got a 2x2 here. Just always go look for the highest power hanging around and put all those together. And we have an x squared over here. Let's see, minus a 3x. Okay, so going down the powers here, then I have a positive 5y. And then we have a negative 6y. Now I say it that way because when I put these together, and we talked about the circles and the boxes, that I always include the sign with the number, because that lets you know what direction you're going on the number line. Are you going positive or are you going backwards negative? And then, you know, I did a little box. And then another thing I'll do is maybe I'll just do kind of like a little loopy underneath so I can see like symbols. But like I said, you can just put them together and it's a little bit easier to see. And so we'd have a 10x squared here minus 3x doesn't have the same power to it, so it's not a like term. And we have a plus 5, take away 6. Big number carries a sign, so a minus 1y. No teacher will get upset with you if you put the ones in there. It's perfectly okay to do. But another example of like terms is, for instance, let's say we have 2x plus 5x. What you're really saying is that you have an x plus an x here, plus an x plus an x plus an x. You have 5 x's plus an x plus an x. Make that a better x. And you can see that altogether you have 7 x's. And that's pretty much how that works. Okay, let's take a look at the next one. Now when you multiply these together, because that's what you're going to do, you're going to multiply and then combine like terms, that you have to remember that it's just number to number, letter to letter. This is where the powers will end up changing. And another way to do this, again, is to put stuff that's alike together. And you know that when you have a number and a letter together, it's basically being multiplied, and a parentheses next to a parentheses also means multiply. So I just put number to number, 2 times the 5, and then x times the x. You get 10x squared. All right, now this is a little bit of, hey, we've got some addition with some multiplying in here. Just another look kind of thing. And a quick reminder that the power always goes to the symbol in front of it. And if it's sitting, parentheses are sitting in front of it, it's saying power up the parentheses. And so I have the negative parentheses 3z parentheses 3z plus the 4xy. And I'm going to put the negative first, and there's the 3 times the 3, number to number, and then letter to letter, which is going to give us the 9z squared plus the 4xy. Can't add them together because they don't have like terms. Another example here is 2m squared plus a negative 2m times a 3m. Notice that we have parentheses next to parentheses, which means you're going to multiply. So you've got some multiplying and addition going on. So I'm going to do the first one. We're going to go left to right again. This says power up the parentheses. So I have 2m times 2m plus number to number, negative 2 times the 3, and then letter to letter, m times the m. So my first one gives me a 4m squared plus the negative 6m squared. And technically, this should really have parentheses around it so that you know it's a negative. Another way to write this would actually be with the negative as a minus sign. So it may be shown as so, 4m squared minus 6m squared. Again, the big number carries the sign, so it's going to be a negative 2m squared. And because we had m squared and an m squared, we can add them together. So there was a little bit of the multiplying here and a little bit combining the like terms. The order basically goes that you are going to multiply, then combine like terms. As a matter of fact, you may be working on distributing. And in that case, you always distribute first, then combine your like terms. If you try combining the like terms before distributing, everything gets Willy Wonka. Distributing is that property of multiplication over addition and subtraction. So I think I'll make you one more screen that shows a couple of those, because that shows everything all being brought together. Okay, distributing. The rule is to distribute, then combine any like terms. It is the property of multiplication over addition and subtraction. Now, here's my trick for that. I call it the power of the rainbows here. I always circle what's out in front of the parentheses here. You have to include the sign with it. And then I draw arrows. I got very skippy eyes, and if I don't do this, even to this day, I lose what's happening here. So we have A times the B, plus minus, because it could be either addition or subtraction, and then A times the C. Okay, let's take a look at the first one. And we have a positive 2 on the outside of the parentheses. And so I'm going to tell my eyes where to go. And I say them both separately, 2 times a positive 3. And you're going to hear me include what the sign is in front of the number, because that helps me with the integers. So I have a positive 2 times a positive 3, which is going to give a positive 6, and then an x. This 2 is going to be, when you're multiplying, number to number, letter to letter. And then a positive 2 times a positive 1 is a positive 2. Okay, the next one here, negative 4x. And I'm distributing it to everybody inside. So a negative 4 times a positive 6 is a negative 24. X times x is an x squared. Negative 4 times the negative 2 is a positive 8, and the x. All right, sometimes you end up with just a negative on the outside of the parentheses, and you have to remember it has that little, I call it a ghost one or an invisible one, implied one that's there. And we're going to multiply a negative 1 to everybody inside. So you end up with a negative 4 and a z. A negative 1 times a positive 5 is a negative 5y. Now, notice here that the negative on the outside, what it did was change the sign of everybody inside. So a negative on the outside of the parentheses is as easy as remembering everybody inside the parenthesis, their sign's going to change. All right, I'm going to try one that's just a little bit bigger so I can do some combining like terms at the same time. So let's say we have the 2 times the 3x plus the 1 minus the 4x times the 6x minus the 2. Okay, first things first, left to right. Something inside front of the parentheses, so I have to distribute it. And so 2 times a positive 3 gives us a positive 6x. 2 times the positive 1 gives me a positive 2. And now on the next one, remember to circle the sign with the number here. It keeps your integers happy. I have a negative 4 times a positive 6, so a negative 24. X times the x, x squared, number to number, letter to letter. A negative 4 times a negative 2 is a positive 8, and then the x. Now I have to find like terms. I always like finding the largest power first, and so we have a negative 24 x squared. Then I go through and find all the things that have a power of 1. So we have a 6x plus an 8x is a positive 14x. And then we have the positive 2. I like to go highest power and work my way down. And so that's a little bit of what happens when you distribute and combine like terms. But my key trick here is to circle what's getting distributed, and then the arrows tell you what it's getting distributed to. That is the really big help for this one. Okay, hope that helps. Talk to you later.